Hello, folks. Once again, it is time for an update on Solanum Atropurpureum, my single seed challenge plant for 2023. The update is it's dead. Or if not dead, it's very close to dead. It's supposed to be able to survive down to around 14 degrees Fahrenheit or so. It hasn't gotten that cold yet. We haven't been much colder than I'd say 20 to 22 degrees. But getting close enough apparently did the job. So Solanum Atropurpureum is no more. It has ceased to be. It's gone on to meet its maker. Rest in peace, Malevolence. You were an interesting, beautiful plant, and I was privileged to get to know you. Let's move over to the seeding area, and we'll talk a little bit. It's about 28 degrees outside right now. 38 degrees. That's not even close. Anyway, it's about 38 degrees outside right now. It's sort of cold. It's not too bad. This is, I would say, typical. This is like a typically gray, dreary December day in Northwest Ohio. I want to say today's date is the 10th. So, yeah, I'm going to call it there. Solanum Atropurpureum is effectively dead. Even if it's not dead, it's basically dead. This plant won't be coming back. That said, I do intend to grow more next year, although that will not be part of the single seed challenge videos. We'll probably just cover it as normal in the regular garden tours and whatnot, the state of the garden videos and things like that, if people are interested, because I know there's at least one viewer who's interested in those. And yeah, that viewer and I will talk separately. So let's see. What was good about Solanum Atropurpureum and what was bad? From a single seed challenge plant, it proved to have some interesting circumstances in how it needed to be grown, and pest pressure was different than a lot of the other plants. I think this was a really good choice, only because it really helped to broaden the things that I had to do. It changed how I had to handle plants. It changed how I was looking at some things. Planning, for instance, was... What was I saying? Oh, right. In a not great way. I was saying that Solanum Atropurpureum really helped broaden my understanding of certain facets of plant care. So, as an example, Solanum Atropurpureum, should come as no surprise, especially if you've watched some of the previous videos here, is a very difficult plant to up-pot. You can't just grab it, you know. Most plants, you can kind of hold them and knock them out of the pot. You can't do that with Solanum Atropurpureum unless you have, like, blacksmithing or welding gloves, which, if I'm going to grow more of these, and I think I am going to, then I am going to need to maybe invest in some sort of gloves that allow me to just grab the plant like that, because yeah, it was very difficult to up-pot, and I had to do it a couple times. It's a slow grower. It's compared to the rest of the plants, like a tomato plant, for instance, which is in the same family, but they're both solanums. It grew a lot slower than tomato plants did. It took longer to germinate. The seed saving method is the same, but different. More on that later. Yeah, overall, I'm happy with how it turned out, but it did have to shift my understanding of a few things, honestly. Which, that's good, right? Learning is always a good thing, especially in this hobby. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to learn from Solanum Atropurpureum. So, what specific challenges did I face with this plant? Up-potting, as previously mentioned. Pest presence on the plant was very strong until it was about a little more than this tall, from the top of the dirt to the top of the plant. At about that height, I had to take it inside and basically scrub bugs off of it. I want to say it was mealy bugs were just kind of glomping onto the bottom of the leaves and becoming a general nuisance, as well as aphids. That all stopped once the plant was about a foot tall. So it's kind of interesting. It was one of the only plants that did not have any pest pressure after May, I would say. I think it was May when I had to take it inside and clean it up. Might have been late April. Not really sure now. But by June, at any rate, it was the only plant that I had that really had no pest pressure. And it just sat out here in the yard and did its thing and just got bigger and bigger and bigger and more glorious until, it was about 4.5 to 5 feet tall and just this wide, covered in spikes and flowers, and then berries. And then I took the berries inside. Yeah, some of them, not all. One other challenge was related to seed saving. The berries are covered in an oily, tacky substance. The plant itself has elements of that as well. And that tacky substance is toxic. So that is something I had to be wary of course, is that every part of this plant was toxic, and it, not incredibly toxic, but toxic enough that it could cause skin irritation, things like that. So I did have to be very careful handling it, and it liked to stab me with some regularity. So yeah, handling the plant in general was difficult. Handling it specifically for uppotting was very difficult. And the pest pressure was very strong up until the plant was about a foot tall, just as a recap. So good things about Solanum Atropurpureum. It's a very striking plant. Obviously, that's why it's called the 5-minute plant. It would be a decent security hedge. You just would have to plant them about 2 feet apart from one another. Maybe, about 2 feet apart should do it. That'll make them thick enough that it's difficult to move through them without getting snagged by 11 billion thorns. Let's see. It's colorful because the berries, the plants are the dark green color, the stems are purple, and then the thorns have yellow tips and the berries are bright orangish yellow. And the flowers were yellow as well. So yeah, it's actually kind of a striking plant to look at. It's colorful. It's very interesting. I don't want it to naturalize around here, but if it can't even take 20 degrees, I'm not really worried about that, honestly. I can't think of a single winter where it didn't get lower than that for some period of time, so at least around here. So yeah, I don't think there's really any danger of this plant acclimating. So that's why, in case you were wondering, why I'm going to probably grow some next year. I think I'm going to put some around my apple trees just to kind of act as a deterrent for the deer, because right now the apple trees are not big enough where I'm going to need to work on them. So it's going to be mostly, winter pruning, and then I do my sprays, and then summer pruning if it's needed. But other than that, it's not like I have to harvest or pinch blossoms or anything like that. The trees are still too small to worry about that. So this would be an excellent plant to help keep deer away from the trees, because they're not going to want to push through this plant to get to the leaves. That's my thinking anyway. I could totally be wrong. I guess we'll find out next year. Other good things about Solanum Atropurpureum, despite the fact that it is kind of a big plant, it's not that big of a plant, and it has a strong upright growth habit where it will self-support. At no point in time did I need to stake this plant. I did not need to do anything to keep it standing upright, including in the storm, because it was outside for this, in the storm that took down the tomato trellis over there, that snapped it off and snapped off one of the trees in the back. Solanum Atropurpureum just sat there and was happy as a clam. Didn't look any worse for wear afterwards. It was one of the few plants that weathered that storm with no problem. So if you're looking for a plant that is interesting and eye-catching and makes you, or at least helps you, to think about gardening a little differently than you did before, I'd recommend giving Solanum Atropurpureum a shot. Additionally, I feel it should be noted that when I did the germination test of the seeds from Solanum Atropurpureum, I did the standard tomato seed fermentation method, which is where you take the seeds, you squish them into a Tupperware container. You do this with seeds that have gel, by the way. Anyway, you take the seeds, you squish them into a Tupperware container that's about this tall, you fill it up with a little bit of water, you shake it all up, and then you let it sit on your counter for about 2 weeks. You stir it occasionally. That step's kind of optional. And then when you're done, you drain the water off, you rinse the seeds off, and then you set them out on a paper plate to dry, and that takes another week to 2 weeks. You just do it that way, and then you can just pop them off the plate and stick them in a plastic bag, which is how I do. This is how I save seeds for anything that requires that gel fermentation method. So, and the plants that require that would be things like tomatoes and cucumbers and Solanum Atropurpureum. Anything that has a gel coating on the seed that's like anywhere at all noticeable. Solanum Atropurpureum had a lot less than most tomatoes do, which is why I wasn't sure if that was going to work, but it did. And it worked fantastically. Like I said before, 96% of the seeds germinated out of 33 that I tested with. So that means 1 didn't germinate out of 33. I'd say that's fantastic turnout. So yeah, it's easy to save the seeds. The plant was easy to grow. It wasn't super picky about water. I did have to water it a little more frequently than some of the other plants, but I think that's more because I was growing it in a pot, and not just any pot, but a fabric pot, which does tend to bleed water out faster than other pot types. So I don't think that was a quirk of the plant itself. I think that's just because I planted it in that pot. But I wanted something with handles since, you know, the plant's covered with thorns. It's not like I can grab the plant. It was, I think, a really great first step for me into doing the single seed challenge every year. Next year's plant has been selected and the seeds have been ordered and received. I am attempting to grow Atropa belladonna, which the non-botanical name for that is deadly black nightshade. It is one of the most toxic plants in this hemisphere, I think. It's not the most toxic plant in this hemisphere, but it's fairly toxic. This is one of those where you do not handle it at all without gloves because it can cause some problems, for sure. Anyway, it has some other interesting bits. To even get it to germinate, you have to do some different things there, so I have to do a little bit more research on that, but we'll hear more about that in a couple months when I get the seed starting setup started. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this little trip for Solanum Atropurpureum. I quite did. Thanks for watching, and until we talk again. It's the plane! That plane's not very high up. I can see his little wheels. Anyway, learning and everything like that is always a good thing, especially in especially in this hobby. We got rid of the big tree that acted as a host for the squirrels, but that didn't stop them. That's neither here nor there. That's not why we got rid of the tree. It's a nice little bonus, but that's not. Anyway, focusing. So yeah, it's probably worth noting as well that the germination test of the seeds that I did, anyway, it should be noted. It should be noted as well that the germination test that I did of the seeds that I took from Solanum Atropurpureum. Why is this hard to say? Okay. It should be noted additionally, Atropurpureum is the same fermentation process. At least I can say it worked with 100%. No, it worked with 97% success. Or 96% success. So the let me start that over.